You guys.
You two really need to be careful if you want to keep this relationship as...
While Carter Walton is working toward his goal of building a premium brand, he has a vision of a business that is founded on the principles of elegance, sophistication, and honesty. He is pursuing his passion while also taking a step toward establishing a new legacy with the company, which he hopes will revolutionize high fashion. Nevertheless, there is no such thing as a cheap dream, and securing financing has proven to be more difficult than he had expected it would be. However, this is only the case until a mysterious investor steps in and provides him with the cash boost he so sorely requires. Before anything else, Carter is overjoyed. A significant amount of money has been committed by the silent partner, with only a few demands being made, and they have managed to keep themselves effectively disguised via middlemen and contracts. In spite of this, Carter's excitement begins to be clouded by rumors of suspicion and danger as he continues to delve deeper into his idea. He begins to wonder who exactly is encouraging him to pursue his ambition. He has no idea that his mysterious investor is none other than Sheila Carter, the unpredictable and dangerous lady who has a dark background and an even deeper agenda. He has no idea that she is his secret investment. The climbing of Carter in the world of fashion. Carter has gained a comprehensive understanding of the fashion industry as a result of his tenure as Chief Operating Officer of Forrester Creations. With the launch of his own luxury brand, he is distancing himself from the influence of Forrester in order to develop something that is distinctively his own. It is his intention to make use of materials that are sourced in an ethical manner and to offer a contemporary and inclusive look, which he considers to be lacking in high fashion. The early suggestions that he makes to investors are highly accepted. However, many are hesitant to invest because of the price tags that his designs require. As the excitement of the situation turns into stress, he finds himself wondering whether he will have to resort to extreme means or whether he will have to compromise his vision. Then, out of the blue, his silent partner comes into the picture and provides cash for almost all of his first beginning costs. What Sheila's secret aim is for as long as she can remember, Sheila Carter has been a lady of patience and cunning. And chance presents itself to her when she learns of Carter's endeavor. It is not only an opportunity to acquire money, but it is also an opportunity to once again penetrate the Forrester's world through Carter. Despite the fact that Carter may have some doubts, he is already so engrossed in his joy that he is unable to investigate the history of his unnamed investor. And that is exactly how Sheila would like it to be. In the event that her identity is discovered too quickly, her entire plan may be rendered ineffective. Sheila is taking a long-term approach to her investment in the Carter brand. As she imagines herself lurking in the shadows of this success story, she sees herself as having the opportunity to wield her influence in ways that Carter cannot even fathom. It is not just a financial aim for Sheila, it is also a personal ambition. Should she be successful in acquiring power through Carter, she will eventually be in a position to exert influence over the Forresters as well. A combination of Sheila's deep-seated need for vengeance and her insatiable thirst for power is what propels her forward. It is possible for her to play the role of a puppeteer, guiding Carter's business not only toward success, but also toward her own specific goals, provided that her presence is concealed and her motivations remain unknown. Indications of possibility. For a period of time, Carter completely submerges himself in the world of luxury branding, completely oblivious to the shadowy conditions that are associated with his newly discovered fame. However, odd occurrences start to take place. There are suppliers that he has never met who are offering special deals, and invites to high-profile events are suddenly given to him. It is almost as if someone influential is pulling strings in his favor. Paris Buckingham, who is Carter's closest confidant, is also able to recognize the peculiarities. She is overjoyed for Carter, but she is perplexed as to why such an investor continues to be so difficult to find. Her fears are dismissed by Carter, who attributes them to her excessively protective nature. She wants him to investigate his partner's history more thoroughly, but he dismisses her misgivings. He tells her that the world of luxury goods and investments is one in which anonymity is considered to be the norm. Next, Carter is surprised to receive an invitation to an exclusive fashion event that is being thrown by some of the most influential personalities in the industry. This invitation arrives just before the evening. It is probable that his investor is aware of the fact that the invitation is signed with a name that he does not recognize. Paris, who is known for her persistent pursuit of the truth, investigates the name. As a result of a few phone calls, she comes to the realization that this host is, in fact, a person who has connections to Sheila Carter. Carter is confronted by Paris. When Paris confronts Carter with this new evidence, Carter first rejects her notion. Paris is armed with this new information. He finds it incomprehensible that Sheila, of all people, would be interested in his brand given the circumstances. Despite this, Paris continues his investigation, revealing every questionable element, including the secrecy, the connections that appear to be random but are actually beneficial, and the favors that have been bestowed upon him since the investment began. Carter reluctantly agrees to conduct additional research after coming to the realization that his brand and possibly his reputation could be negatively impacted by the situation. After receiving the documentation from his investor, he examines it thoroughly, making sure that the names, contracts, and laws are correct. But Sheila has done a good job of covering her traces. There is only one piece of evidence that leads to something more sinister, and that is a concealed clause in one of his contracts. However, the information is still so ambiguous that Carter cannot be positive of it. Over time, he gradually comes to terms with the reality that this could be Sheila's way of making her way back into his life, and consequently, back into Forrester Creations. He reflects on all he has been told about her, including the lies, the manipulation, and the deceptions that she has committed. If it is true that Sheila is his investment, then her motives cannot possibly be anything positive. Conferencing or remaining silent? At a time when the launch of Carter's brand is drawing near, he finds himself struggling with a decision. He has put in a lot of effort to transform his goal into a reality, and the potential of the brand is something that excites him more than anything else. Nevertheless, the whole idea of Sheila playing any role in his vision causes him to feel a sense of dread. If he were to share his doubts to prospective customers or allies, he is concerned that they may withdraw their support for his brand out of fear for Sheila's reputation at the same time. Keeping quiet, on the other hand, means enabling Sheila's influence to poison everything that he has successfully constructed. Paris encourages him to address Sheila head-on, but he is hesitant to do so because he is aware that any confrontation with Sheila would be risky and unexpected under any circumstances. Instead of doing that, he makes the decision to seek guidance from the Forresters. Upon hearing his notion, Steffi instantly expresses a desire to completely sever all links with the brand in the event that Sheila involves herself. However, Eric, who is known for being the voice of reason, expresses caution. In order to avoid taking any extreme measures, Eric recommends that Carter first gather some tangible evidence, uncovering the last secret. Sheila Carter is hanging above Carter, and his dream is dangerously poised against the shadow of Sheila Carter. Carter is at a standstill. It is becoming increasingly clear to him that he must make a decision as the big inauguration of the brand draws near. Either he must reveal his investment, or he must accept the tainted success that would result from Sheila's involvement. An extravagant event attended by celebrities, members of the press, and fashion insiders, the opening night has finally arrived. The moment Carter goes onto the stage, he notices Sheila in the audience. Sheila's eyes are fixed on him, and she smiles in a way that is both knowing and cunning. At that very instant, he comprehends the intricacy of her scheme, as well as her game of manipulation and control techniques. However, when he meets her eyes, he comes to the realization that although Sheila may have her hooks in him, she does not possess his brand, his goals, or his future. Carter has made his choice quite obvious. He will not conceal the truth, regardless of the consequences, since his honesty is more important to him than any premium brand could ever be expected to be. When it came to Ridge Forrester, Brooke Logan believed that their connection was one of a kind. It was more profound, more resilient, and beyond the reach of conventional heartbreak. Although she had experienced the ups and downs of love throughout her life, she believed that their connection was exceptional. They had fought for each other over the course of many years and across numerous nations, weathering the kind of turmoil that would leave the majority of people disturbed, if not utterly shattered. They had done this together. On the other hand, here they were, stronger and more self-assured in their relationship than they had ever been before in their whole history. According to her, it was the case. Nevertheless, all that was required was a cursory examination of Ridge's phone in order to thoroughly disprove that notion right away. While Ridge was out, the message was found on his phone, which he had left unattended. Ridge had left his phone unattended on purpose. Despite the fact that Brooke had no intention of probing, her curiosity got the better of her when she found a name that she had never heard of before among the texts that he had sent in the recent past. She was taken aback when a straightforward text message opened the floodgates to a flow that she had not anticipated. The screen was tapped by her. A night like the one before was definitely one to remember. Keeping this a secret for any longer than necessary is a waste of time. As if the words were a torrent of acid that reached her very being, it was extremely distressing. As she continued to read the lines, she noticed that her hands were beginning to shake and that her heart was pounding. During this time, she was praying that the words would be altered in some way. It seems clear that this was a mistake. Perhaps the message was meant to be delivered to someone else the entire time. On the other hand, her instincts were leading her to believe that she was on the wrong track. Everything that Ridge has been doing recently, including his recent display of aloofness, his attempts to mask his distant glances, and his late nights, all came together to make sense. As Brooke held her chest, her breathing became weak and irregular. She was unable to control her breathing. The house created the appearance that it was turning around constantly. As she attempted to get back to the couch, she staggered back to it, trying her best to ignore the emotions that she was experiencing. How is it even possible for him to accomplish that? How could Ridge possibly do something to her after everything that they had gone through, after every tear that had been shed, and after every promise that had been made? When Ridge did finally return home that evening, Brooke had already made up her mind. She needed to know the truth, regardless of how dreadful it would be. However, Ridge did not return home until the following day. She waited until he had settled in, and then observed him go about his daily routines, utterly clueless to the impending storm that he was about to face. After that, she waited until he had settled in. She became conscious of his calm demeanor and studied his behaviors as he approached her and kissed her on the cheek as if nothing was occurring. He did this as if nothing was significant. Despite the fact that she was already in pain, this made her condition even worse in some way. When she yelled out, "Ridge," her voice was forceful, but had a hint of melancholy underneath it. As a result of being taken aback by her tone, he shifted his focus to her and became aware of the rigidity in her stance. "Brooke, what am I doing wrong?" Within the span of a single minute, she was able to catch a glimpse of genuine worry in his stare as his eyes searched hers. The flavor of each sentence that she was uttering in her mouth was caustic, and she continued to fix her stare on him. "Please tell me her name." He was taken aback and blinked, but he covered his expression with a mask of doubt as quickly as he could. "Brooke, are you serious this time? What exactly are you referring to then?" There was no sign of hesitation on the woman's part. As for me, Ridge, I was able to detect the message. The previous evening was one that everyone will remember for a very long time. All right, let's stop keeping this a secret for the rest of our lives. In spite of the fact that her voice was shaking, and she loathed herself for it, she had no choice but to let out a voice because it was required. Ridge's face turned a very ghostly white, as the repercussions of his actions began to overwhelm him like a tsunami. His normally calm demeanor began to break down, and he became increasingly anxious. Brooke felt her heart sink even further as he moved his head away from her, despite the fact that he was unable to meet her gaze face to face. In spite of the fact that she had placed her trust in him beyond all others, the man she loved had been dishonest with her. "Brooke, I didn't mean for you to find out like this," he whispered, the sorrow that was evident in the tone of his voice. "I'm sorry." On the other hand, the words that he stated did nothing but feed the flames of her fury within her. Then, is that the case? Her eyes started to well up with tears, and her voice was hardly audible above a whisper when she finally came to terms with the truth that he had betrayed her. She had finally come to grips with the circumstance. When we take into account everything that these two of us have been through, Ridge, what is the possible way that you could bring this upon us? In an effort to shield herself from the discomfort, Ridge took a step toward her and extended his hand to her. However, she rebuffed his efforts and crossed her arms over her chest in an effort to shield herself from the pain. Ridge's attempts to make contact were fruitless. "Brooke, if you would please just give me a moment?" With a sneering expression, she expressed her displeasure through her remarks. "Is that the case? What is the most appropriate approach to convey this? You have been having an affair with another individual behind my back. I am totally unaware of this. For how long has this been going on? Do you have any idea? Was it your intention to keep me in the dark for the rest of my life? Or were you planning to reveal the truth to me at some point in the future?" It was written all over his face that he was hanging his head, despite the weight of the regret that he felt towards himself. There were no plans in place for the event to take place. Not to put too fine a point on it, it did. In the course of this period, things have been difficult between us, and I thought, Is it challenging? After that, she started to interrupt, and her voice took on an air of surprise as she did so. Is it not one of the reasons you give? In light of the fact that the circumstances have been difficult, assuming that we had been through enough to understand that love is not always a simple thing to accomplish, I assumed that we had been through enough. I was under the notion that we were able to find a solution to both of our problems together. Brooke's remarks had the weight of 1,000 promises that had been broken, and they echoed throughout the room as they spread across the space. She looked at Ridge, trying to discover some sign of regret, some indication that he realized the magnitude of her anguish. Yet, his silence only served to make her predicament even more difficult. She believed that he would acknowledge her suffering. I trusted you, Ridge, she mumbled as tears streamed down her cheeks. I trusted you. I put my faith in you. You were the only person beyond whom I had the utmost confidence. You then threw everything away, but for what reason did you do that? How about a casual affair? What exactly is a distraction? When he drew a deep breath, his own eyes were filled with regret, and he did so with this feeling. In all honesty, Brooke, I had no intention of causing you any pain. A moment of weakness. The error was a mistake, and it was a moment of weakness. Wait a second. Brooke laughed regretfully, despite the fact that she was using the back of her hand to wipe away the emotions that she was experiencing. In the event that this is the true, then it begs the question, why did she say that she no longer desired to conceal it? What do you think about the fact that this seems to be a little bit more than a moment? In order to provide her with the necessary assurance, Ridge's silence was the essential factor. Brooke got the feeling that the walls were closing in on her as a result of this betrayal, and every memory that they had experienced together was tainted with a sense of taint. During her thoughts, she recalled the instances in which she had defended him and fought for him, the instances in which she had laughed with him, and the instances in which she had loved him. Furthermore, at this point, the only thing that remained for her was the utterly debilitating sorrow of being betrayed. The final thing she said was, "Get out," and her voice was completely devoid of any emotion. Ridge sent a horrified glance in her direction, but she did not exhibit any symptoms of flinching in response to his gaze. It is so difficult for me to look at you right now that I can't even force myself to smile. Moreover, I implore you to just leave. He opened his mouth as if to contradict the assertion, but something in her eyes told him that there was no room for debate. This was despite the fact that he had opened his mouth. Brooke was left standing alone in the empty room, her heart devastated as Ridge rounded a corner and exited the room altogether. Before setting off, Ridge had given her one last look before departing. When the door closed behind him, Brooke was overcome with tears and sank into the couch. He was overcome with emotion. Sobs were raging through her entire body. Previously, she had experienced a great deal of anguish, but nothing quite like this had ever happened to her. This was not just a broken promise, but it was also the steady breakdown of a love that she had believed to be unbreakable. She had imagined that this love would last forever. For the very first time in her life, Brooke Logan was confronted with intense sensations of being shut off from the world. Because of this, the lady who had always fought for love and who had believed in it beyond all else was left wondering if she would ever be able to believe in it again. She had always believed in love.